I've had a request to take a look at another King's Gambit game. Alexander Morozevich against Vishy Anand from Moscow 1995. This is an absolute barnstormer of a game. You're going to enjoy this. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do consider supporting us via PayPal or Patreon, links down there. Now, here on my repertoire DVD with the King's Gambit, I looked at knight f3, but here Morozevich played bishop c4, the bishop's gambit, and this really is a throwback to the 19th century. Of course, black can disrupt white's king position with queen h4 check, but that's kind of what you want with white, you know, because you're going to gain time against the queen. Anand played knight f6, which is the approved method of dealing with this bishop's gambit. I should mention that at this time, Morozevich was only 17 years old. Anand in 95 was about to challenge Kasparov for the world title, and Anand was already recognized as one of the greatest speed players, rapid players in the world. This was a rapid game, remember. I was actually commentating live on this game with Maurice Ashley, and wow, well, we couldn't believe our eyes. This was an amazing game. Now, Anand has played the, well, very sound way of dealing with this. So putting a pawn in the middle, blocking out the bishop, and this is known to be, you know, a decent way for black to play. And bishop d6 here is kind of the most reliable move to protect that pawn. I mean, this is, you know, been known for decades. Bogolyubov played like this, for example, in the 1920s. But Anand went bishop b4, which is certainly not a bad move, but is riskier. Let's see why. Knight f3. But somehow it's very typical of Anand. So he gave up bishop for knight, so that's why it's typical of him. Vishy does this so often. Loves playing with the knights. Not many other top players are so keen to play with the knights against the bishops. Queen c7, now that's a good move. The queen protects that pawn on f4, so it prevents the bishop coming into the game, and also puts pressure on that pawn on c3. Queen e1, so now that queen maybe wants to transfer to the king side, and there it goes, queen h4. So Anand starts to think, okay, I need to sort of bolster the king side. The knight comes to e7, switching over. Bishop takes f4, queen takes c3. So black is still a pawn up. Queen could be a bit annoying on c3, so Morozevich just knocks the queen back. And knight e5. Now let's just take stock for a moment. The opening is over. The middle game has begun. Who would you rather play with? Would you rather play white or black in this position? Well, I have to say, I would grab white position in an instant, because have a look at white's pieces. Two bishops, the knight on this great outpost, the rook on a semi-open file, the queen active. All this for one pawn. This is a bargain. Now, if black wants to play very safely, you could just plug your king side with knight g6. I think black should equalise there. But Anand went knight f5, and this is a good move. But it raises the stakes, because black isn't simplifying here. Anand basically says, okay, I can withstand the pressure. Bishop comes out to b4, the rook switches to a c8, and now g4. I repeat, this is not bad for black at all, but can you imagine playing this in a rapid game? So there's pressure on the clock, there's pressure on the position, and g4 starts to crack open the f file. The knight's under attack, it comes to d6. So, well, if all things go well, if everything goes well for black, he'll be able to sit a knight on e4, but there is so much pressure here. And now white's last piece, comes into the game, rook AE1. This looks absolutely terrifying. Here Anand played the knight into e4, which is not a bad move. You could consider playing a5 here to try and simplify. But knight e4 played by Anand. As I mentioned before, if you feed this into your computer, it thinks that black is still okay here. But in practical play, wow, this is so difficult for black. And just watch Morozevic's next move. c4, this is absolutely brilliant. So he's got all his pieces in play. There's pressure on the f-file. The knight is wonderful. The bishops look good. Maybe the only piece in white's army which isn't playing, if we come back to this position, is that bishop on b3. It's not on a bad square looking at d5, but after c4, well, what's the idea? He's giving up that pawn just to nudge that bishop back so it's on this absolutely wonderful diagonal. Now this is terrifying for black. So the knight is attacked. Knight f6, Anand brings the knight back, and Morozevich hastens to drive the knight away, which would open the f-file. Then the bishop starts to look menacing on this diagonal. I need a slurp of tea. Scooby-Doo to the rescue. Hang on, there we go. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe I should ask you. You have a slurp of tea. Pause the video if you like. What would you play here if you were playing black? Anand under pressure on the board, under pressure on the clock. That was unusual for him. You know, normally he was so much faster than everyone else. And here he played what looks to be the most natural move, knight h5. He wants to block out that queen on the h-file. In fact, knight d5, incredibly, was the better move in this position. And well, again, if you feed this into your computer, it still says that black is okay, but knight h5 was a mistake. Let's see why. Well, Morozevich was very cool. He just nudged the queen back. Of course, it was attacked. Queen f3, hitting the knight on h5. Pawn to g6, protecting. And now here is where Morozevich crashes through. You have to look at black's pieces, black's major pieces, way across the other side of the board. Somehow, you know, the time is right to make the breakthrough on the king side. Knight takes g6, h takes g6, and now bishop takes g6. So a second piece flies into the king side. So, I mean, really, that has to be taken. If the knight comes back, black is just overloaded here. I mean, this is not very difficult. And rook e4, and the rook swings across. So pawn takes bishop. Rook takes bishop. So now white's still a piece down, but knight threatened, pawn on g6 threatened. It is absolutely terrible. There really is no defense here. Let me give you an example. What about rook f8? Well, just a little tactic here. Rook takes pawn check here, and now everything is working in white's favor. We can give up the queen, but we win black's back, and of course that is a winning endgame. Let's come back here. The finish is beautiful. Queen f7, queen d5. Now that opens up the f-file. Rook takes queen threatened. Anand blocks with knight f5, and now rook takes f5. Opens things up. What a tour de force. Here Anand resigned. Let's just see why. If pawn takes g6, when the queen moves away, then rook e8 would be mate. And if after rook takes knight, queen takes, it's mate in two. Rook e8, double check, king up, and queen g8 mate. Incredible. Morozevich just when he's on his game, he is a deadly attacker. Funny thing is, these two played again 23 years later, also in Moscow, in a Blitz tournament, the Tal Memorial Blitz tournament, and they had exactly the same opening, and Vichy improved with knight takes d5 and managed to defeat Morozevich. Maybe I'll show you that game another time, but it just amused me that 23 years later, same location, Anand improved and got revenge. Maybe I'll show that another time. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Do check out my King's Gambit DVD. I'm very proud of it. It's really good fun. Great repertoire for white. Thanks for watching.